Commander Park Hyun stared out the window of Kepler Station at the empty black space around them. The stars looked normal, but something felt wrong. He had been in charge of this remote space station for 3 years, and his gut feelings were usually right. "Sir, we're getting a strange signal," said Lieutenant Kim Nari from her seat at the communications desk. Her young face looked worried as she worked with the controls. "It's not human. The computer's trying to figure out what language it is." Hyun walked over to her station. Kepler Station was the farthest human outpost from Earth, sitting alone in the Andromeda Galaxy. They had only 200 Marines and a few old spaceships. Most days were quiet and boring. "Can you make it clearer?" he asked. Neris's fingers moved quickly over the buttons. Strange sounds filled the room, clicks and whistles that hurt to listen to. Then the computer started translating the words into Korean. Double quotes, "Help, help us. The Devourers have come back. Our ships are gone, planet's dying. You are our only hope." The room went silent. Every person on the bridge stopped what they were doing. The Devourers were legends, stories told to scare children. Ancient monsters that ate entire star systems and then disappeared for thousands of years. Chief Petty Officer Lee Soo, an older man with gray hair and scars on his hands, stepped forward. "Sir, I'm reading multiple ships coming toward us. They don't look like anything I've seen before." Through the big windows, Hyun could see lights in the distance. As they got closer, he realized they were spaceships, but not normal ones.
Oh.
Ships looked like they were made of crystal and metal mixed together. Many were broken, with holes in their sides and pieces missing. "Those are Rylan ships," said Nari, reading from her computer. "The Rylans are one of the peaceful alien races we've traded with. But, sir, there are so many of them. And they all look damaged." Hyun felt his stomach drop. If the Rylans were running, things were very bad. Rylans were smart and had powerful weapons. They had been living in space for millions of years while humans were still learning to make fire. "Send a message to Admiral Kong back on Earth," he ordered. "Tell him we need help. Big help. Every ship they can send." The minutes felt like hours as they waited for a reply. More alien ships kept arriving. Not just Rylans, but other species too. All of them looked like they had been in terrible battles. Finally, Nari looked up from her station. Her face was pale. "Sir Admiral Kang says the main human fleet is fighting the hegemony at the border. He can't send any ships to help us. He says this is a rescue mission outside their area of concern." Hyun closed his eyes. He had expected this answer, but it still hurt. Earth was millions of light years away, and the politicians there didn't understand what was happening out here. "Sir," said Lee Soo quietly, "what are your orders?" Haeon looked around at his crew. They were good people, Marines, who had volunteered to serve at the edge of known space, far from their families and friends. They deserved better than to die alone in the dark. But as he watched the alien refugee ships limping toward their station, he knew they couldn't run. These aliens had helped humans when they first arrived in Andromeda. Had shared their knowledge and treated humans as equals, even though human technology was primitive compared to theirs. "We're not leaving," he said finally. "Signal all the refugee ships. Tell them Kepler Station welcomes them. We'll give them food, fuel, and medical help." "Sir," whispered Specialist Hanji, a young woman who operated the sensors, "the Devourers are coming. If the stories are true, they've never been defeated." "How can we fight them with just our small force?" Hyun smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had made a hard choice and was ready to live with it. "We'll fight them the way humans always fight when things look impossible. We'll fight dirty, we'll fight smart, and we'll make them pay for every inch." Lee Soo nodded slowly. The old chief had been in many battles, and he understood what Hyun meant. "What about the experimental weapons in Storage Base 7? It's the ones that got Lieutenant Commander Oh in trouble back on Luna Base. Break them out," Hyun said. "All of them. If we're going to make our stand here, we're going to use every dirty trick humanity has ever invented." As the refugee ships docked with Kepler Station, Hyun felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders like a heavy coat. In a few hours, or maybe a few days, the most dangerous enemy in the galaxy would arrive. They would expect an easy victory. Against a small human outpost, they were going to be very surprised. Hyun walked to the station's intercom and pressed the button that would send his voice to every room and corridor. All hands, this is Commander Park Hyun. We have refugees coming. Aboard, and we have enemies coming behind them? I won't lie to you. The odds are bad, but we're human. And humans don't run when our friends need help. Prepare for battle. The crew started moving with purpose, getting ready for the fight of their lives. Elder Veltar stepped out of her damaged ship onto Kepler Station's docking bay. Her skin, which should have glowed with soft blue light, was dim and gray. Behind her came other alien leaders, beings from different worlds who had never been in the same room together before the Devourers forced them to run. Sergeant Major Choide stood waiting with his Marines in neat rows. Even though everything was falling apart, humans still followed their rules about showing respect to important visitors. "Welcome to Kepler Station," said Commander Hyun as he walked forward. "We know you've lost a lot, but you're safe here." Veltar looked at him with her large, pearl-colored eyes. "Commander Park Hyun, your people are new to this galaxy. I don't know what's coming. Why are you helping us when you could run away?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Hyun said simply. The alien elder's body flickered like a candle in the wind. Among her people, this meant she was very upset. "You don't understand. The Devourers aren't just another enemy army. They're like death itself, but worse. They don't just kill, they erase everything. When they're done with a planet, it's like that world never existed." In the station's main meeting room, Veltar shared her memories with the humans. It was like watching a horrible movie inside their heads. They saw beautiful cities being torn apart piece by piece. They watched as entire populations were sucked into giant machines that turned living beings into parts for Devourer ships. "Tried everything," Veltar continued, her voice full of sadness. "Our best weapons, our smartest battle plans, our most desperate attacks. Nothing works. They learn from every fight and get stronger. After the first battle, our quantum weapons became useless. After the second, they could predict our moves before we made them." Lieutenant Kim Nari raised her hand like a student in school. "Elder Veltar, have you tried using ... older weapons?" The alien looked confused. "Older weapons? Simple things," Nari explained. "Bullets, bombs made from chemicals, nuclear weapons that split atoms instead of fancy energy beams." Eltar's body actually brightened, which was how her people laughed. "Child, our ancestors stopped using such primitive tools millions of years ago. They're weak, messy, and limited. They can't compare to our modern technology. But do the Devourers know how to defend against them?" asked Chief Lee Su. For the first time since arriving, Veltar went completely silent. In that quiet moment, Commander Hyun felt something he hadn't felt in years. The excited feeling that came before a crazy plan that might actually work. "Chief, send a message to Lieutenant Commander O on Luna Base. Tell him we need all his experimental weapons, even the ones that got him in trouble with his bosses." Lee Su's eyes went wide. "The Ragnarok projects, sir. Those are still being tested. Some of them might not work at all." "Perfect," Hyun said with a grin. "If we don't know how they work, the Devourers definitely won't." Over the next few days, the station became a busy place. Human Marines taught alien refugees how to use simple weapons like rifles and grenades. Engineers worked day and night too, changed the station's defenses, placing energy shields with thick metal walls and swapping laser cannons for old-fashioned guns that shot pieces of metal really fast. Dr. Yoon Seo, the station's science officer, worked with alien engineers to understand Devourer technology. "It's incredible," she told Hin during one of their planning meetings. "Their ships are part machine, part living creature. He'll damage and adapt to new threats in minutes." "What about their weaknesses?" Heian asked. "It's the problem they don't seem to have any. Every time someone finds a way to hurt them, they change to prevent it from happening again. It's like fighting an enemy that gets smarter every time you hit them." Elder Veltar joined them, her form still dim with exhaustion. "Commander, I must ask again, why are you doing this? Your people could leave this galaxy and be safe. Why risk everything for strangers?" Hyun looked out at the stars through the meeting room's window. "Because strangers are just friends you haven't met yet." Humans don't abandon their friends. But you'll all die, Veltar said quietly. The Devourers have never been defeated. It's not once in all of recorded history. Then we'll be the first, said Sergeant Major Choi, who had been listening quietly in the corner. It's what humans do. We take the impossible and make it possible. As if summoned by their words, Specialist Han Ji burst into the room. Long-range sensors are picking up something big. Really big. The computer says it's still 3 days away, but it's definitely heading straight for us. Heian stood up slowly. How big? At least 1,000 ships, sir. Maybe more. They're not trying to hide. The room fell silent. Even with all their preparations, everyone knew the numbers were hopeless. 200 humans and a few thousand alien refugees against 1,000 enemy ships. Well, said Chief Li Su, with a dark laugh, at least we won't be bored. Hugh nodded and activated the station's communication system. All hands, this is the commander. The enemy will be here in 3 days. Use that time to rest, to prepare, and to say whatever you need to say to the people you care about. When the Devourers arrive, they're going to learn something new. They're going to learn what happens when you threaten humanity's friends. As the crew scattered to make final preparations, Heian stayed at the window, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, death was coming for them. But humans had faced impossible odds before, and they were still here. Time to show the galaxy what humans could do when they were really angry. The Devourer scout ship appeared in space like a tear in reality itself. It was smaller than the human ships, but looking at it made people feel sick. The hull seemed to be alive, pulsing with dark veins that glowed with an evil light. On Kepler. Station's bridge, Specialist Han Ji watched her computer screens with growing fear. Sir, that ship is doing something to our systems. It's learning our language just by listening to our radio signals. Commander Heian nodded. He had expected this. The Devourers were famous for being able to steal information from any computer they encountered. In just a few minutes, they would know everything about human technology that was stored in their databases, but they wouldn't know the things that weren't written down anywhere. The main screen flickered and came to life. What appeared made several bridge officers step backward in horror. The Devourer representative looked like a nightmare, part flesh, part machine. Constantly changing shape like liquid metal mixed with living tissue. I am the voice of consumption, it said in perfect Korean, though the words seemed to come from inside everyone's head rather than their ears. You will tell us your species name and surrender your bodies to the collective. We resist. We will dissolve you completely. This is Commander Park Hyun of the Terran Defense Force. Hyun replied calmly. And our answer is no. The creature's form rippled like water. Terran. Human. This name does not exist in our memory banks if consumed. Civilizations. You are ... unknown to us. We're new around here, Hyun said, with a slight smile. Interesting. Your species shows unusual calm when facing certain death. Most beings at this stage cry, beg for mercy, or become paralyzed with fear. You show none. Of these normal reactions, from her seat at the communications console, Lieutenant Nari looked at Heian and nodded slightly. The psychological attacks that had broken the minds of countless other species were having no effect on the human crew. Their military training had prepared them for fear and horror. We've seen worse things, Heian said simply. Impossible. Are the ultimate expression of death and destruction. We are the end of everything made real. What could possibly be worse than facing us? Monday morning meetings, interrupted Chief Li Su from his position at the weapons controls. The alien creature actually stopped moving, its form flickering as it tried to understand this unexpected answer. Explain this reference. You want? To absorb us into a group mind where we lose our individual thoughts, where personal identity disappears, and where efficiency becomes more important than everything else. Li Su continued in a conversational tone. We call that a normal day. At work? The bridge crew chuckled, a sound that seemed to physically disturb the creature's projected image. Your species shows severe mental problems, the voice declared. This explains the strange readings we're getting from your minds. You will be given priority treatment for immediate correction through forced evolution. Good luck with that, Hyun said, then cut off the transmission. As the scout ship began to move away, he turned to his crew. All stations, get ready for battle. Remember, they've never fought humans before. That's our only advantage, and we need to use every second of it. Through the large windows, the first wave of devourer ships began appearing from hyperspace. They moved through space like giant fish swimming through water, their hulls covered in organic-looking armor that seemed to breathe. There were hundreds of them, each one bigger than Kepler Station. "Sir," whispered Specialist Han, her voice shaking with fear. "How are we supposed to fight against that many ships?" Commander Heian looked out at the approaching enemy fleet, then at his small crew of brave men and women who had volunteered to serve at the edge of known space. His smile was not pleasant. It was the smile of a predator about to show its teeth. Same way humans have always fought when the odds were impossible. Specialist. We cheat. The smaller devourer ships moved closer to test the station's defenses. Their sensors scanned every weapon, every shield, every piece of equipment the humans had. The enemy computers began calculating the best way to destroy the station. With minimum effort, then Chief Li Su opened fire with the manual gun controls. The first shot was a simple piece of tungsten. Metal accelerated to incredible speed by electromagnetic rails. It punched through the lead devourer ship's adaptive shields like they weren't even there. The alien ship's living hull tore open, spilling strange fluids and gases into space. "Direct hit," shouted Han from her sensor station. "Their shields didn't even try to stop it." "Of course not," muttered Sergeant Major Choi from the Marine Command Center. "How do you adapt to a chunk of metal moving really, really fast?" The second wave of human weapons followed immediately. Chemical explosives that worked by burning fuel and oxygen, nuclear bombs that split atoms the old-fashioned way, kinetic weapons that relied on nothing more complicated than Newton's laws of motion. The devourer ships, caught completely off guard by technology they considered ancient and primitive, began taking serious damage for the first time in thousands of years. Their adaptive systems, designed to counter energy weapons and exotic matter, had no programming for dealing with simple projectiles and chemical reactions. But the enemy was learning fast. Within minutes, Hyun could see the devourer ships beginning to deploy countermeasures, magnetic fields to deflect metal projectiles, point defense systems to shoot down missiles, and armor plating to absorb kinetic impacts. "They're adapting, sir," reported Li Su. "In another few minutes, our primitive weapons won't work anymore." Hyun nodded grimly. He had expected this too. The human advantage would be brief, just long enough to spring the real trap. "All stations, prepare for Ragnarok Protocol activation," he announced. "It's time to show these things what humans do when we're really desperate." The main devourer fleet arrived like a dark cloud covering the stars. Hundreds of massive ships moved toward Kepler Station, their living hulls pulsing with alien energy. They had adapted to the human weapons now. Their shields deflected metal bullets. Their armor absorbed explosions, and their point defense systems shot down missiles. Commander Heian watched the tactical display as the enemy ships took perfect formation around his station. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never lost a battle, never faced real resistance, never encountered an enemy that could truly hurt them. "Chief, activate Ragnarok Protocol 1, he ordered quietly. Chief Li Su's hand hesitated over the controls. The experimental weapons had never been tested in real combat. The computer simulations showed they might work, but they also showed a high chance of complete failure. "Sir, are you sure about this? If it doesn't work, we're dead anyway," Hyun interrupted. "At least this way. We'll take some of them with us." Li Su nodded and pressed the activation key. Deep in space around the Kepler system, hidden weapons platforms that had been disguised as asteroids and space debris suddenly came to life. These weren't normal weapons. They were humanity's most dangerous and least understood inventions. Reality anchors that could change the laws of physics in small areas. Quantum destabilizers that could make solid matter fall apart at the atomic level. Temporal displacement fields that could age targets by thousands of years in seconds. The effect on the Devourer fleet was immediate and terrifying. The first enemy ship hit by a reality Anchor began to twist and bend as the space around. It forgot how to follow normal physics. Metal became liquid, energy turned solid, and time moved in circles. The ship's adaptive systems, so good at countering conventional weapons, had no way to deal with reality itself becoming unstable. A quantum destabilizer hit a Devourer cruiser, and the massive ship simply dissolved as its atoms forgot how to stay together. One moment it was there, the next it was a cloud of particles spreading through space. The temporal displacement field caught 3 enemy ships at once. In seconds, they aged millions of years. Their hulls crumbled to dust, their power systems died, and their crews became ancient skeletons in the blink of an eye. "It's working," shouted Specialist Han from her sensor station. "We're actually hurting them." But even as the experimental weapons tore through the enemy fleet, more Devourer ships kept arriving. For every ship they destroyed, 2 more appeared from hyperspace. The battle turned into a desperate fight for survival. Elder Veltar, watching from the station's command center, felt something she hadn't experienced in decades, hope mixed with amazement. "How is this possible?" she whispered. "Your species is so young, your technology so basic. How do you have weapons that can affect reality itself?" Lieutenant Nari looked up from her communications console, sweat running down her face from the stress of coordinating the complex battle. "We don't really understand how they work either," she admitted. "But humans have always been good at using things we don't fully understand." The space around Kepler Station became a war zone unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human fighters, tiny compared to the massive enemy ships, used tactics that seemed completely crazy. They rammed into Devourer vessels while screaming battle cries over their radios. They flew their ships into enemy weapon ports and detonated nuclear bombs at point-blank range. They attacked in swarms, then scattered, and attacked again from completely different directions. Marine boarding parties, led by Sergeant Major Choi, used simple pressure suits and cutting tools to break into enemy ships. Armed with nothing but rifles and grenades, they fought their way through alien corridors filled with living machinery and hostile atmosphere. "This is insane," Choi shouted into his radio as his team battled through a Devourer ship's organic interior. "The walls are trying to eat us. The air is poison, and I think the floor just tried to grab my boots." "Keep moving," replied Commander Han from the station. "Plant the charges and get out." The human tactics made no sense to the Devourer collective. Their computer models predicted that humans should retreat when faced with superior numbers. Instead, they attacked. Logic said they should preserve their forces when taking heavy casualties. Instead, they fought harder. Every rule of warfare suggested they should surrender when facing impossible odds. Instead, they started singing old Korean war songs over their communication channels, but even human determination had limits. After 6 hours of continuous fighting, the small human force was running out of everything: ammunition, fuel, working weapons, and people. "Sir," reported Chief Li Su, his voice hoarse from hours of shouting orders, "we're down to 30% ammunition. The Ragnarok platforms are showing critical damage. We've got 5 Devourer capital ships closing on our position." Looked around the bridge at his exhausted crew. They had fought better than anyone could have asked. But the mathematics of war were simple. There were too many enemies and not enough humans. Outside the windows, the Devourer fleet still filled the space around them. They had hurt the enemy badly, cost them more ships than any force in galactic history, but it wasn't enough.
"All hands!"
"This is the commander," Shen announced over the station-wide communication system. "Prepare for Protocol Omega." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what Protocol Omega meant, turning the system's star into a weapon by making it explode. The blast would destroy everything within light years, including themselves. Sometimes, Hayan said quietly, "the only way to save everyone else is to make sure the enemy can never hurt anyone again." His finger moved toward the final activation key. Commander Hayan's finger pressed the final activation key. Deep in the heart of the Kepler system's star, hidden devices that had been secretly placed months ago began their work. The star's core became unstable, its nuclear fires burning hotter and faster than nature intended. 30 seconds to stellar detonation. announced the computer in its calm, emotionless voice. On the bridge of Kepler Station, the crew stood at their posts with quiet dignity. They had done their duty. They had protected the refugees and hurt an enemy that had never been hurt before. Now they would make the ultimate sacrifice to ensure the Devourers could never use their fleet to destroy other worlds. "It's been an honor serving with all of you," Hayan said simply. The star exploded with the force of 1,000,000 nuclear bombs. The artificial supernova consumed everything in the system: the station, the refugee ships, the massive Devourer fleet, and the brave humans who had made it all possible. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from neighboring galaxies. But the stellar fire did more than just destroy. As the explosion spread outward, it carried with it a special quantum signal that had been encoded into the star's death. This signal traveled faster than light through subspace, reaching every corner of the Andromeda galaxy in minutes. The signal contained something the Devourers had never encountered before: detailed information about human psychology, human tactics, and most importantly, human weapons that could hurt them. Every Devourer ship in the galaxy received this data package, and with it came something unprecedented in their million-year history: fear. On the Devourer mothership, a construct the size of a small moon that served as the brain for their entire species, the collective consciousness experienced doubt for the first time. The quantum pulse had damaged every Devourer vessel within 1,000 light-years, but the real damage was to their confidence. These humans were impossible to predict. They fought with weapons that shouldn't work, used tactics that made no logical sense, and sacrificed themselves for ideas that couldn't be measured or calculated. They were, by every standard the Devourers could understand, completely insane, and they had one. 6 months later, Admiral Kong Min stood on the bridge of the largest human warship ever built. Around him, 1,000 ships of the Terran Defense Force moved through hyperspace toward the Andromeda galaxy. Every hull was painted with ancient Korean War symbols and loaded with the most primitive weapons humanity could find. Admiral reported Captain Yuben from the communications station, receiving a transmission from the surviving Rylan forces. The main screen showed Elder Veltar aboard a rebuilt coalition ship. Her normally calm appearance was cracked with barely controlled emotion. "Admiral Kong Min," she said formally, "I greet you in the name of all free beings in this galaxy. We, had not dared to hope you would come," Elder Veltar Kong replied. "We received Commander Park's final message. We should have been here sooner. Veltar's form flickered with confusion. "Admiral, it has been 6 months since Kepler Station's sacrifice. We thought humans had written us off as a lost cause." "Ma'am," interrupted Captain Yu with barely controlled anger, "you don't understand humans very well if you think we abandon our friends." Kong gestured for silence. "Commander Park bought us time to prepare, Elder. His sacrifice won't be wasted. We're here to finish what he started." The liberation of Andromeda began immediately. The human fleet split into smaller groups, each assigned to attack Devourer forces in different parts of the galaxy. Their tactics were chaos by any military standard. Some groups used overwhelming firepower from weapons that belonged in museums. Others employed stealth technology the Devourers had never seen. And still others simply charged straight into enemy formations while broadcasting old human war songs. The Battle of the Crystal Nebula lasted 2 days and ended with the complete destruction of a Devourer harvesting fleet. The engagement at the binary stars saw human marines boarding enemy ships with nothing but cutting tools and homemade bombs. The siege of the Coalition homeworld ended when human pilots started ramming Devourer capital ships while shouting Korean curse words over open radio channels. Elder Veltar, now serving as a guide aboard Admiral Kong's flagship, watched the tactical displays with something close to religious wonder. The humans fought with organized madness that turned every battle into unpredictable chaos, and somehow, impossibly, they were winning every fight. "I don't understand," she told Admiral Kang during a brief pause in the fighting. "Your weapons are simple. Your tactics are inefficient. Your soldiers take losses that would break any reasonable military force. You should have been defeated weeks ago." Kong watched a group of human fighters engage a devourer battleship that was 10 times their size. The enemy vessel had weapons that could crack planets, but the human pilots showed no fear as they swarmed around it like angry bees. "Elder," he said finally, "there's something you need to understand about humans. We don't fight because we think we can win. We fight because we refuse to lose. And when someone threatens our friends—" He paused as the devourer battleship exploded under concentrated fire from ships that shouldn't have been able to scratch its armor. "Well, we take that very personally." The final battle came at the devourer mothership itself. The human fleet approached it directly, broadcasting a simple message. "This is Admiral Kung Min. You killed our people. You threatened our friends. Surrender now, or learn why humans are the most dangerous thing in the universe when we're angry." The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the devourer mothership was a broken wreck, and their threat to the galaxy was finally over. Standing on his ship's observation deck, Admiral Kang watched human and alien crews working together to clean up the battlefield. The combined fleet celebrated a victory that none of them had thought possible. "Hope was gone," Elder Veltar said quietly. Then humanity came in guns hot. The galaxy would remember this lesson for thousands of years to come.